What happens when truth starts to threaten profit? What if your beliefs don't just change your life, but disrupt an entire system? And how far will people go to protect what they refuse to let go? Ephesus was no ordinary city. It was a center of commerce, culture, and religion. At the heart of its identity stood something massive, something people were proud of, something they depended on: the Temple of Artemis. It wasn't just a place of worship, it was a symbol of pride, a source of income, a foundation of the local economy. People came from all over to see it, to honor it, to participate in its rituals. And around it, an entire industry had formed. Craftsmen created silver shrines of Artemis, small models of the temple and the goddess herself. These were sold to visitors, pilgrims, and believers. It was more than business, it was a way of life. Then something began to change, quietly at first. Paul had been in Ephesus, teaching daily, sharing the message about Jesus. People were listening, people were changing, lives were being transformed. And when people change, their habits change, their priorities shift, their beliefs realign, and suddenly what once had value no longer does. That's when Demetrius stepped in. A silversmith, a businessman, someone whose livelihood depended on the very system that was being challenged. He gathered the other craftsmen together, workers in related trades, people who had something to lose. And he spoke. "You know, my friends, that we receive a good income from this business." He started with what mattered to them: money, stability, security. Then he pointed out the problem. "You see and hear how this fellow Paul has convinced and led astray large numbers of people here in Ephesus and in practically the whole province of Asia." Notice the words: convinced, led astray. From Paul's perspective, he was sharing truth. From their perspective, he was causing loss. Demetrius continued, "He says that gods made by human hands are no gods at all." That statement struck at the core, not just of belief, but of business. If people stopped believing in Artemis, they would stop buying the shrines. They would stop supporting the system. They would stop fueling the economy built around it. And then he said what they were all thinking: there is danger that our trade will lose its good name. This wasn't just about religion. It was about reputation, influence, control, and also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis will be discredited, and the goddess herself will be robbed of her divine majesty. Now, it wasn't just about money. It was about identity, pride, tradition. Demetrius knew exactly what he was doing. He connected their financial fear with their cultural pride, and it worked. When they heard this, they were furious. They began shouting, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians," again and again, louder and louder, until the entire city was in an uproar. What started as a conversation became a movement, a mob. The people rushed into the theater, an enormous gathering place that could hold thousands. They seized Gaius and Aristarchus, Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia, dragged them into the crowd. The situation was out of control. Chaos filled the air, voices shouting, confusion rising, emotion taking over reason. Paul wanted to go in. He wanted to face the crowd, speak to them, stand in the middle of the chaos. But the disciples wouldn't let him. Even some officials, friends of Paul, sent messages urging him not to risk his life. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was dangerous. The assembly was in confusion. Some were shouting one thing, some another. Most didn't even know why they were there. Think about that. They were caught in the noise, carried by emotion, reacting without understanding. That happens more often than we realize. People join movements, take sides, raise their voices, without fully knowing why, without examining the truth, just following the crowd. In the middle of this confusion, the Jews pushed Alexander forward, wanting him to speak. He motioned for silence, tried to make a defense, but when the crowd realized he was a Jew, they all shouted in unison for about 2 hours, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." 2 hours, repeating the same phrase, over and over, not listening, not thinking, just shouting. This wasn't about truth anymore. It was about emotion, fear, identity, and control. Finally, the city clerk stepped forward, a voice of reason in the middle of chaos. He managed to quiet the crowd. "Fellow Ephesians," he said, "doesn't all the world know that the city of Ephesus is the guardian of the temple of the great Artemis?" He began by affirming their pride, their identity, their status. These facts are undeniable. Then he shifted. "So you ought to calm down and not do anything rash." He pointed out the reality. You have brought these men here, though they have neither robbed temples nor blasphemed our goddess. In other words, there was no real crime, no real reason for the chaos. If Demetrius and his fellow craftsmen have a grievance, the courts are open. There was a proper way to handle it, a lawful way, an orderly way. But if there is anything further you want to bring up, it must be settled in a legal assembly. And then came the warning. As it is, we are in danger of being charged with rioting because of what happened today. That hit differently. Now the risk was not just emotional, it was legal, serious. We would not be able to account for this commotion, since there is no reason for it. No reason, just noise, just reaction, just fear. After he said this, he dismissed the assembly. And just like that, the riot ended. The shouting stopped, the crowd dispersed, the chaos faded. But the impact remained. This story reveals something deeper than just a historical event. It shows us what happens when truth disrupts systems, when belief changes behavior, when transformation affects more than just individuals, it affects culture. Because when people stopped believing in Artemis, they stopped buying the shrines. And when they stopped buying, the economy shifted. And when the economy shifted, people reacted. Not because they were searching for truth, but because they were protecting what they didn't want to lose. This is the tension between truth and comfort, between transformation and control. Paul didn't attack their business directly, he simply shared truth. And truth did the rest. It changed hearts, and changed hearts, changed actions, and changed actions, changed systems. That's how powerful truth is. But not everyone welcomes that kind of change. Some resist, some push back, some create noise to drown it out, because letting go of what's familiar is hard, even when it's false. The people in Ephesus weren't just defending a goddess, they were defending their way of life, their identity, their income. And that made the reaction intense, emotional, uncontrolled. But in the end, truth didn't need to shout. It didn't need to fight. It didn't need to force. The chaos burned out on its own, because it wasn't built on truth, it was built on fear. And fear eventually loses its strength. The message Paul brought continued, quietly, steadily, transforming lives one by one, while the noise of the crowd faded away. This story speaks clearly into today's world, because we still see the same patterns. When truth challenges systems, there is resistance. When change threatens comfort, there is reaction. When beliefs shift, there is tension. And sometimes, there is noise. Loud voices, strong opinions, crowds forming, people reacting without understanding. But the question remains, what is it built on? Truth or fear? Because what is built on truth lasts. What is built on fear eventually falls apart. The riot in Ephesus wasn't really about Artemis. It was about control, loss, change, and how people respond when something deeper begins to shift. So the question becomes personal. What are you holding on to? What beliefs, what habits, what systems are you protecting? And are they built on truth or just familiarity? Because sometimes the loudest reactions reveal the deepest insecurities, and sometimes the strongest resistance points to where truth is trying to break through. The story ends quietly. No dramatic victory speech, no final confrontation, just a crowd dispersing and a message continuing. Because truth doesn't need chaos to move forward. It moves through lives, through change, through transformation. One person at a time. And in the end, that's what makes the difference. Thank you for watching this video. If this message made you think, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who wants to understand truth beyond the noise.